Hi, I'm Stephanie Rivers, and I want justice. The police officers involved showed reckless disregard. Hello and welcome to the video version of my journal. I'm Steffanie Rivers. Come on into the conversation. I am multicasting on several platforms. You could be watching me on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, but whatever platform you're on, we want to welcome you to the show. And I want to thank you to my subscribers for always looking and listening. If you're new to the conversation, we want to welcome you. I'm sure you're going to hear something that you want to share and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you will be the first to know. So today we're talking about the Black people who go missing and what happens to their cases. When loved ones go missing, there's a standard operating procedure that most of us follow. We make calls to the person. We try to find out who they were with, who they were last seen with, and we might check their last known whereabouts. And if time goes by and we still can't find them, then we seek out law enforcement and possibly file a missing persons report. But what do you do when local law enforcement doesn't give your loved one's disappearance the attention that you think that they deserve? Countless families of Black and brown people have experienced that frustration firsthand when their loved ones go missing and are written off by local law enforcement. If they're underage, they just might say, oh, they just ran away. If they're an adult, they might say, well, they just don't want to be found. But whatever happens, they quit looking for them. What is a family to do? Derrica Wilson felt that frustration and wanted to do something about it. So Derrica and her sister-in-law, Natalie Wilson, they co-founded the Black and Missing Foundation based in Washington, D.C., and she is my guest today. Welcome to the show, Miss Derrica. How are you?
Thank you so much, Miss Stephanie. I'm fine, and thank you for utilizing your platform to help us, tell our stories.
Well, and it's a story that always seems to be there's a need for it to be told. Your foundation, tell me first, how did it start? Was there something personal that happened to you and your family that made you want to go the extra mile and actually start a foundation?
So we started the organization, Natalie and I, 14 years ago. And the inspiration behind the birth of the Black and Missing Foundation was a young lady by the name of Tamika Houston. She went missing from my hometown of Spartanburg, South Carolina. And despite the fact that her aunt worked in media relations, she still struggled to garner mainstream media for her niece. And so 2 weeks later, Lori Hacking went missing. Local and national media were covering her story. A year later, Natalie Holloway went missing, and just saying her name alone, it resonates with everyone. And although Rebecca reached out to those same news outlets, they still ignored the fact that her niece was missing. So Natalie and I started doing some research to see if this really is an issue that's impacting our community. So when we started the organization in 2008, we discovered that 30% of missing persons in the United States were persons of color. And that number has since increased to 40%. So our inspiration and motivation is that these families that look like us in our community, they need our help. My background is law enforcement. Natalie's background is public relations. And those are the two critical professions that's needed in finding our missing. So that is what we decided to do. You know, there was a problem in the community, and in order to address a problem, you must be willing to be the solution.
Amen. I agree, and I want to thank you because I know there are lots of other families that want that have used your services, and so your website. If anyone wants to know about your foundation, it's I have it pulled up, but it's Black and Missing.
BAMFI.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to give the short version for anyone out there listening. It's BAMFI.org, and it stands for Black and Missing Foundation Inc. That's BAMFI.org.
And as a matter of fact, I don't know at what point did you seek out uh, publicity from home box office because I think that's how I learned about your foundation. Is I was watching HBO and saw the documentary series, and that shines a spotlight on the mostly Black women and girls that have gone missing with little to no acknowledgement by mainstream media. So, how did it come about that you were able to get the documentary series to help to highlight what it is that you and your sister and the foundation are doing in your community?
So in 2017, Nally and I, we were honored with the Black Girls Rock Community Change Agent Award. And, you know, again, we started this organization. We didn't get in it for any accolades. This is a purpose and a passion and just answering the calling. And Beverly Bond wanted to recognize our work with Black Girls Rock. And so Soledad O'Brien saw that we won the award, really wanted to utilize her platform to help us amplify, you know, our cases and what's happening, because we really wanted to give a bird's eye view into the uphill battles that these families that we serve go through, but also shine that spotlight on how we together collectively can help implement and drive change to, you know, the issues that we're seeing up front. For example, you know, law enforcement labeling our kids as runaway or making us wait 24 hours.
Oh, you're Derrica. I don't know if you're hearing me, but I can't hear you. Okay, let me see. Derrica, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I can't hear your um, um, audio anymore. Let me make sure. Okay, are you there? Are you okay? I can't hear your audio. Um, okay, I think I heard you take out your. I think I heard you take them out for some strange reason. Okay, she can't hear me. I'm not sure what happened with the audio, but we'll work on it. In the meantime, I was going to ask you how did you come to connect with families when they do have a missing person? Do they contact you through your website, or do you work with local police officers? She can't hear me. So I will come back to you, Derrica, and let me see if I can hear one of the families that Black and Missing works with is the Robinson family. And so, Mr. Robinson, um, we just want to bring
Hello.
you on and for you. Okay, we can hear you now. So I'll bring her back on and then we will bring everybody in. So All right. So one of the families is the family of Daniel Robinson. He went missing. He's a 24-year-old geologist, Daniel Robinson. He disappeared after a day at work last June 23rd. So it's almost been a year. His father, David Robinson, is here with us today. Welcome to the show, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you for having me on.
So you reported your son missing later on that evening, and you actually drove from South Carolina to Arizona to help search for your son. Now, initially, law enforcement searched the area around his work site in the desert, and they found that his vehicle overturned near his work site in Buckeye, but Daniel has never been found. So, what have you found out since then about your son's uh, uh, disappearance?
Thank you again. Well, one of the things is it was very devastating, of course, just hearing that my son's missing. That really drove me to get here to Arizona. Was based on the officers' decision to make assumptions that my son somehow wanted to disappear on his own. Um, you know, uh, one thing I have learned so far is that like I say, I have getting no assistance from the local police department, so I had to get my own investigator. And with my investigator, I learned some information, details about what really happened to the vehicle. My son's Jeep Renegade, his 2017 Jeep Renegade, that was found 3 miles farther in that remote area of the desert. And some of the things that we found so far about the vehicle itself, the damage that matched the terrain, for instance, was very devastating just to hear, because that way it's telling us that the vehicle wasn't most likely planted there or driven there at some point, but the initial crash, the damage on the vehicle had happened somewhere else.
All right, and so you have created a website to find your son, which is, I guess, that's one of the ways that you have used social media as well as a way to get the word out about your son. And here's a picture of him if anyone wants to find out or want to get more information or to possibly sign up to be a volunteer. They can go to pleasehelpfinddaniel.com and they can find out more about him. And then I'll scroll down, and of course you've got uh, there are lots of news stories because when he first went missing, you did the rounds of the um, interviews with CNN and other national media, and they were willing to, of course, give you that airtime, thankfully. But at what point did local law enforcement and the national media decide, Mr. Robinson, that your son was, not worth looking for anymore?
Well, it took a hard 3 months just to get some type of recognition on my son, just locally, get recognition on my son's disappearance. Took day and night, literally reaching out to these networks and as well social media. Of course, like you said, Daniel's story went nationally. With the change of the news cycles and the one of the biggest things was the highlights the way the system shows people of color versus I think it was white women syndrome at the time. Once that story kind of died down, so did, of course, my son's story. But since that time, I learned that I have to, build my own platform. So that's the reason why I do some of the things I'm doing now, like reaching out to the community, continuously reach out to the community, get those flyers out, even have my own social media when it comes to YouTube and things like that, just to make sure my son's story don't die out with the news cycle.
So let's fast forward. So you said it took them a few months to that where they put forth some effort to find him, and then at some point there was a young lady named Gabby Petito, a white woman who disappeared, and it became national news, and even the FBI got involved in the search. It was all hands on deck to find her. And then they later on found her remains. And as it turns out, if I got the story correct, her boyfriend admits that he killed her. And the national media attention made it so that her family didn't have to go through what you're going through of raising money to coordinate the search, coordinating volunteers for the search, or hiring your own private investigator. So how does it make you feel to realize that that there was so much effort and national media attention put into finding a white woman, but your son from the same state and the same resources, that same effort was not put forward for him?
It's devastating. It's devastating. My mind was so focused on finding my son. I didn't even realize about the Petito case at the time. But once I did, it been brought to my attention by my family, and to say it's 24 hours, 7 days a week coverage. I just thought about the 3 months it took me just to get local news to cover Darren's story, and then kind of went on from there. But it's nonstop because even to date, I still haven't got the resources, don't have the law enforcement agencies pouring out support. All the searches that I did in the desert out there, over 40,000 acres of land. I'm sorry, 32,000 acres of land, and 40 weeks of searches have been all performed without law enforcement. So it's a continuous thing for me. It's not having to stop. So when that pain started, of not having that support from law enforcement itself, it is a continuous thing because I'm still fighting for that.
So, at what point did you find out about on the Black and Missing Foundation? What connected you with them? And maybe Derrica, that could be something that you could answer. At what point did you become involved in with the Robinson family to help them to continue their search?
Well, one of the things, we have a lot of followers that support us, and someone had shared Mr. Robinson's son information with us. And when we learned about it, it was also during the time of Gabby Petito. So we were highlighting Daniel Robinson's case as well as Jelani Day. And we're not trying to dishonor any other community. We just want to even the playing field because oftentimes there's this. They like to associate our disappearance with some sort of criminal activity. And sadly, we see this on and on and on over and over again. And so you have this young Black man who's doing what he's supposed to do, college graduate, he's a geologist, and he's out there working. And then you have Jelani Day, who is also a college student, positive young Black man, no coverage whatsoever. And so we started sharing this information. We created our flyers on our website, started pushing it out, and we were able to make contact with Mr. Robinson and even assisted with getting some additional coverage for him. But I'm so glad that he has been his son's biggest advocate. And it's so sad that families have to resort to this because, again, with Gabby Petito, they had all the resources. And here we are looking at Mr. Robinson's family struggle as well as so many other families, and no one is coming to their aid. And I'm speaking of law enforcement. They're not dedicating any resources, no dogs, no drones, no nothing. I mean, it was all hands on deck for Gabby. And it was even to the point that her father, and I do applaud her father, during his time of grief, he actually came out publicly and he said, we appreciate the attention, but there are so many others that are missing that need that same attention. Again, missing persons isn't a Black issue. It's not a white issue. It's an American issue. It's a human issue. And I think there's this big misconception that law enforcement think we work for them, but law enforcement works for us.
And they're doing a disservice to Mr. Robinson and so many families that, that are just like Mr. Robinson in the same situation.
So, what are you doing? What is your foundation doing to bring to fill the gap between what local law enforcement, what taxpayers are paying them to do, and what you do? What is, what do you do? What can a family like Mr. Robinson's look for when they go to you?
Well, we like to provide any type of assistance that they need, whether it's financial assistance, whether it's creating flyers, utilizing our platforms. We've also recognized that media is so vital because media applies pressure to law enforcement to dedicate more resources on the case. Most of the time, law enforcement, they don't want to be embarrassed. In this particular case with the police department out in Arizona, they're not doing much of anything. So we have to really work around them and continue to be able to utilize our national media partners anytime, any opportunity that we can to put them in contact with Mr. Robinson, to cover those cases, to share those profiles, even if the families are not going on to tell the story themselves, at least send it out because we don't want no case to die, because if you're not shining a spotlight, there's this perception that the person must have been found, that there's no need to continue to look for them. But that is so far from the truth, that these families are still hurting, they're still searching for answers. And it's just so unfortunate that, I'm deeply saddened that they haven't come out to even help Mr. Robinson. Mr. Robinson and I had this conversation recently. I'm like, have they done anything, And I think for me, being a former law enforcement official and now working in this capacity, with the organization, there are some things that I just want to do myself. And I can't because I'm no longer a sworn police officer. So, sometimes I feel like I need to go back on the force. But I will say this, we are also fighting to change laws as well. Change the reporting structure. Mr. Robinson had to wait before he was able to get a police report filed. There are so many families that have to wait. When it comes to our children that are under the age of 18, they're telling parents, oh, your child just ran off. Even if they don't have a waiting period in some states, law enforcement will still tell a parent, oh, just wait, 48, 72 hours, come back if he or she hasn't shown up at home. But we all know the first, 24 to 48 hours are the most critical moments.
That's
Right, right. Mr. Robinson, I know that you have been coordinating, like Derrica says, your own searches, and then you had to postpone those. Just talk to us about what your plans are to reestablish those searches, and how important is it for people to volunteer to be a part of that?
Yeah, thank you. Well, the most devastating thing for me right now is to have postponed those searches. It's very, very urgent that I have to be out there and search those areas that haven't been searched already. Some of the searches areas that we have searched need to be searched again. I tried to make sure I go over some areas multiple times. Just to make that decision was based on mostly finance. Of course, everything is being funded by mostly GoFundMe, and when those fundings have gotten low, the funding have stopped coming in. I had to make some choices. I cut the searches down from weekly to like every other week. Now there's time coming in my investigation, my personal investigation. I have to get forensics work done on the vehicle, things that weren't done at the scene. The vehicle, my son's clothing, the red transfer paint, you name it, the airbags. It costs money. So right now I'm trying to make sure I juggle everything at the same time, keeping the distribution going, the flyer distribution, things like that. That just take away from the searches. Also, I have to keep the volunteers safe. I'm very responsible when I'm out there. Make sure I have a command center, things like that. So the things that the volunteers need, as well as myself, I had to make that hard decision to postpone it. But coming forward, yes, I definitely want to get back out there in that search out there to make sure if I get to a certain area, I can feel more comfortable that I search every area that's based on science and logics. That would say a person can go out for a certain distance based on some of the information I got uh, from my private investigator. as in 11 additional miles, for instance. Things are based on those. And once I get those areas covered, then I can feel comfortable in myself that, I did everything out there in that desert, every area that's reasonable to search for my son. So going forward, I got the 501c3 that I filed to try to help in that efforts to be able to provide those fundings and things like that to get the things I need, like drones and the equipment I need to go farther out. Because logistically right now, it's kind of hard to get in certain areas that I really need to get searched.
So essentially, you had to leave your life in South Carolina and move there to continue the search. So it's, although I'm sure your son and you feel like that's the duty of a father, and wouldn't have it, any other way. That's, a lot of people just can't do that. They can't pick up, because like you said, it takes money, and then you already have expenses, and you have a household, and you have, other family members. So how has that been? How has it been to have the help of volunteers and a foundation that helps in that search, in that challenge?
Yeah, one thing I want to say real quick also to Black and Missing, I really thank you. You came to my rescue the time I didn't know of the Black and Missing Foundation, but you all, like you said, reached out to me. I was grateful for the donation that helped towards the searches and things like that. That helped tremendously. I wanted to make sure I point that out. Just to have people from the community come out and help as well. Of course, I didn't have law enforcement to do it. Just put the call out there and people actually show out there to help in the searches. That means a lot. I think sometimes. Okay.
And thank you, Ms. Robertson. I don't even mean to cut you off, but that's what we're here to do. And I know that even with Daniel's case, Steffanie, I'm not sure if you're aware, 1 year anniversary is next week. And I don't even like to say an anniversary. We're still searching, but we're reaching a milestone, and Daniel's still missing. And if there's some flyers that you need for us to do for you, we can circle back after this call, and we can certainly get you some flyers for your event to distribute out there, because all this stuff is costly. And again, it's a pain point for me that law enforcement is not taking this seriously. And if I can just say this also, Steffanie, Mr. Robson, he is so humble as well. But he served our country. Okay, he served our country, but our country is not serving him. And that is what really, really bothers me, because he should not have to do everything that he is doing when we have all sat back and been a witness to the resources that are allocated for others. And nobody is coming to his aid to say, hey, from that law enforcement chain. No one is coming to his aid to say, here, let me bring out some four-wheelers. Let me bring out the cadaver dogs. Let me bring out the drones. They're not doing that. And that is my hope, that they see this and say, some light bulb go off to say, this is a hurting father, a hurting family who's still looking for their son.
And you know what? Like I was saying, I saw the documentary on your foundation, and I have a drone company, and I thought, well, why don't I contact the Black and Missing Foundation and volunteer my services as a FAA certified drone pilot. And so that's what I did. And so I am, if it's, I have the capacity to travel, and if I can, we can coordinate with any families out there who need a drone for a day to do a search. I'm willing to do that. So I just want to bring up my website and just share that with everyone. It's tcbdrones.com. So if you are in a position where you need a drone for family member who is missing and you want to do a search and rescue mission, you can coordinate that through the Black and Missing Foundation. So just want to put that out there. And so with families, do you find them, Derrica? Does your foundation find them? Do they find you, or it's a combination of both?
It's a combination. I'm happy to say that since the docu-series, we've been very vocal and we are starting to see a shift. We are being invited into newsrooms to talk to top executives because there needs to be more diversity in a newsroom. Less is more, less of one race, more of everyone that's missing, greater the chances of a reunion. We are being invited into these law enforcement conferences, and being a former police officer myself, being able to talk about what those issues are. And something else that we're also doing, we're issuing scholarships as well, scholarships and fellowships. So we're issuing law enforcement scholarships. We need more of our community members to take interest in those type of careers so they can be in a position to help families that we're working with. And even with communications, with our public relations, we have fellowships that just started actually today on June 12th, to be able to utilize their skills to help families, to be advocates for families. So again, we are getting our calls from family members, we're getting them from our media partners, we're getting them from law enforcement, social workers, and we also go on a quest also to find families, because honestly, no family should have to experience this. There is no blueprint. Like if someone loved one is missing, these families are so vulnerable. What really hurts us, and we see so often, is that when families are at their weakest moment and they're taking matters into their own hands because law enforcement is not taking the cases seriously, they start creating their own flyers. They put their phone numbers on there. So now they start receiving those scam and those ransom calls. And sadly, some of them give into it. So we seek out those families, because when we create the flyer, it's law enforcement's number, it's our number on there. We understand there's a lack of trust when it comes to law enforcement, so we're very transparent. If we get a tip in addition to sharing it with law enforcement, we also share it with the point of contact for the family, so they can also make sure that they're following up accordingly as well.
Great to hear. And you also have a newsletter. How can someone sign up for the newsletter, and what information can they expect to get from that newsletter?
So they can actually go to our website, bamfi.org, and on the top of our home screen, there is join our community. So once they join our community, they can see what we are doing in our community. If we have any volunteer operations that are taking place, in their respected areas. We're also sharing profiles of our missing as well. That is definitely a main piece, to continue to get these flyers out there, our missing, and also any other information, such as, again, our scholarship opportunities, our fellowship opportunities. Of course, school is ending right now. So today we were working on our newsletter that's going to go out this week, and providing parents with safety tips. Because again, we want to be proactive. We're not a reactive organization. We want to arm our community with the skills, the knowledge, the tools to keep them safe, to keep them from even, becoming a victim or going missing. And I also wanted to just really point out something really quick, if I may. In the docuseries, you were able to witness, when Gabby went missing, when Natalie went missing, people were flying from all around the country, right? Mm-hmm. But then when people in our community went missing, it was just us and the family. No one was trying to come out, and it was so sad because you can hear the neighbors. We're knocking at the neighbors' doors, and they're like, the police hadn't even came to knock at my door, and this happens all the time. And that's what we wanted people to see, because something has to change.
That's right.
Most definitely. So if you want to volunteer or know more about um, how you can be a part of the solution, then you can go to the respective websites. And if you want, you can also email me at um, info@tcbdrones.com, and I can get you in touch with the Black and Missing Foundation, or you can contact them directly. And so, is there anything else that you guys want to share that I didn't ask as we close up this segment?
I would love for Mr. Robinson to share about what he has going on next week, and hopefully more people hear this and donate, because he's looking for a son and he needs all the resources. And thank you again, Steffanie, for offering your resources to help Mr. Robinson and all the other families that we serve.
No problem. Mr. Robinson?
Yeah, well, thank you also as well. One thing I want to mention really quick though is that since I've been doing this, a lot of people say, "Hey, this father going up searching for his son." I just want to make sure sometimes the way I take things. I want to say that stereotype would be that we don't love our children. I'm sure, and I hear that a lot. But I think there's a lot of Black fathers. I want to say it that way. We love our children. I love my son, and I think any father would do the same thing I'm doing. There's nothing special. It's just that the fact that we have a missing son or missing child, any of your children, we don't go all out. We go all out for our children. Sometimes the media don't portray it that way. For instance, when I first started out here, I did drive to Arizona. The local news story, no matter how much speak about Daniel's mother, they stick on one narrative. The way I take it, this Black man drove 2,000 miles to look for his son, like it's a miracle. It's something that we just don't do. I think it's something that we do. Saying if we was put in that position that I was, any Black father would do the same thing I'm doing. So I probably took it that way, but that's the way it felt to me when they said, it shouldn't be a shock that a father going to look for his son. But sometimes that's how the media portray it. But as in the 25th, yes, we have an event, the Day of Remembrance. The event is dedicated to missing families with missing loved ones. Also, we're reaching out into the indigenous community as well to bring people together, these families together to share their stories, and also to give them an opportunity to pass out their flyers, to just bring awareness, to build some kind of platform for these families to be able to get their stories out. Because there's so many families that I have spoke to while I'm doing this, tell me their story. Some have family missing for 10 years, for instance. But they talk about it as if it was day one. And, I couldn't be human if I didn't respond to those type things. So my goal is to try to help families as well, highlight their missing loved ones.
And on that note, if I can just highlight the fact that throughout the search for Daniel, there has been other bodies that have been recovered.
That's right.
Even with Gabby Petito, before she was in the search for Gabby and her boyfriend, there was about 9 other bodies that was found. So our thoughts and prayers go out to all of those families who were also voiceless in the search for our missing, so.
That's right.
Wow. So again, I want to thank you for taking the time, and hopefully we'll post this on our social media and our websites. There's going to be about 5 different places where this show will be posted, and hopefully we can get some feedback from some people who want to volunteer or use their resources to help others. And so that's why it's important to me, because it could be the next person could be my family member or your family member, and we don't want that. If we can prevent it, if we could help other people and show compassion in other people's when they have something going on, I think that's important for us to do as a community. And so thanks again for joining us, and we'll certainly keep up with the case, Mr. Daniels, Mr. Robinson, sorry.
Thank you.
And I look forward to hearing from you so that I can come out and use my drone for the next search that you have.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All righty. So we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right,
Okay, thanks,
Derrica.
Stephanie. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you both.
And thank you for joining us. To find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. It's at eurweb.com. Thanks and have a super day. Hi, I'm Steffanie Rivers.